Let's take a look on YouTube. In theory, it should go again. Okay. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, I don't know where this stopped streaming, but at some point it did. So you're just going to miss some stuff. Which, again, this was not interesting. This was me rambling for potentially 3 hours about complete nonsense. But it looks like I'm live all over. Someone has told me I'm live on Facebook. My loyal viewers, who I don't know in real life previously. They are just viewers that I found. All right, let's get this back. And I don't know. And also, let's move this back where I like it. Okay, well, Zachary, if you are still there, no, I'm not, and Zach, if you are switching to Twitch, you could test whether my messages work, because, I in theory can see those. And actually, I need to reset up my YouTube messages. See, YouTube going down is really annoying, because the old message was gone. Anyways, I'm going to respond to you like you're there, even if you're not. Which is, you asked me, oh, I did not get banned from Twitter. People on Twitter blocked me. So this is really stupid. This is me complaining about people blocking me and then discussing what we were talking about. Earlier, we had a nice discussion on genocide, which is probably a more significant issue. This is, my initial response, wasn't the most important thing to say. And then we're just discussing not whether the guy who murdered Kirk was left. I straight up say he was left. We're discussing whether he was a radical left-wing extremist, which of course, on my terms, I'm talking about his ideology, and my only position here is, well, we don't know. We know he was left. We don't really know what he believed. We don't have a manifesto. We don't have a whole bunch of substacks of his different issues of what he believed. And so we had people talk to him. We had that he didn't like Kirk. It does appear he was on the left. We don't know if he was left-wing. We don't know if he was extremist or radical, other than in his action. And you know, if this is referring to his ideology, I'm just pointing out we don't know that. And then people are talking to me on those grounds, on that, oh no, we're talking about, is this an accurate description of his ideology? Not the guy who posted, but other people are. So at that point, it is the topic of conversation. And it ends with me getting blocked. So yeah, I don't know why anyone would watch this. But it's me complaining about being blocked. And see, I made this video of me crying because people blocked me. Which, it's not a big deal. But it just gives me an excuse to stream and really just show how I waste tons of time talking with random people on the internet who end up blocking me. And I feel like I was developing, a friendship, a romance with Mr. Neff here, Neff Talks, and then he blocked me. Neff, that hurt me. Neff, it hurt me bad. So anywho, so I said we know he's left, but all right, everything looks like it's working. What the fuck? When I try to respond on Twitch, it asked me to join Twitch today. Well, I'm not going to figure out the Twitch slush right now. I think if I just log on, this is really weird. So I have the Twitch chat over here, and I see, how'd you get banned on Twitter? I was hoping you got banned. I think he was a memer. And of course, it's a random guy, but he talked to me extensively, for Twitter. And so, it's not a big deal to all get blocked, but I still like to complain. And it gives me an excuse to talk about things. And I don't know, I still got to keep doing gaming stuff, but it's just a way to talk about issues live. Because it's hard for me just to sit and start streaming and talk about things. But if I have a random social media argument, then, well, it's easier for me just to talk about issues. Here, it happens to not be an issue, really. It's something stupid and minor, which is not really my ideal focus. But the previous one was about genocide. I think what is a genocide and whether a genocide is being committed is a little more important. Here is I'm literally talking about whether radical left-wing extremists, whether we know that the assassin of Kirk is that, in which I am confirming he's left, but I don't think we really know his whole views. We don't know if they were how left-wing they were, extremists, how radical. I don't really know how we make that claim. And again, I don't know if Metatron is actually claiming that. He didn't confirm. But Netflix here talking to me on those grounds. On those, that's an accurate description. Essentially, what he seems to be saying. Although he seems to forget that I already acknowledged he's left later. So, anyways. Oh, also, I've had YouTube arguments with people who I'm 95% sure are Chinese propagandists, and you can tell they take shifts because it's clearly a different person who picks up the conversation. And it's like, what? And it's clear about things that I know China would like to have propaganda about. And so I'm literally wasting time arguing with Chinese propagandists, and they take shifts, and it's their turn to use YouTube, and you can tell it's a different guy who's picking it up. So yeah, I waste too much time. And now I'm wasting more time on this extremely long stream. Yeah, but, and I bet you there's a lot of people who do that. I think there's probably also people who work for political campaigns who do that too. And then there's people who fools and they basically work to do that without realizing it. I hope I'm not one of them. You know, people who think they're doing the right thing. And really, they're just a propaganda tool and believe false things and are spreading false things and they're actually doing evil stuff. But yeah, his name was like Dragon Sky or something. And you never know, because obviously a lot of Chinese people believe what the Chinese government wants them to believe, so it could be a real person. But at some point, it's like, no, seems like a propaganda guy. And at some point, I swear it's a different person I'm talking to. Okay. Oh, well, this is one reason why I don't put my Twitter on my screen. But anyone on Twitter might be able to see that, because they can check the Twitter chat. But, I don't agree with that sentiment, but also I am Luigi. Anywho, I don't agree with that sentiment. Actually, this I think there is a real tension here, actually, because look what I just said. I called someone evil. What they're doing is evil. Their propaganda is evil. Hell, I'll say it. I don't know enough about Charlie Kirk. I don't think he's like an evil human being in general, and sometimes I'm sure he had some good conversations and said some good things. But in general, I saw him basically as a propagandist for Trump. And once Trump became in office, he was essentially a government propagandist. I mean, he was a political organizer, and he didn't necessarily work in truth or necessarily was pro-democracy. If you look at what he did with, Trump's lost election. I don't know why I'm putting in quotes, because I think he did lose. But anyways, you could look at a propagandist and actually say, no, their work is evil. And yet, I also say, no, we shouldn't kill him. And there's a bit of a tension there. How am I going to make this round? Look, kids. I think we could be real and recognize that a lot of people, with their speech, with their political actions, with the things they push for, they're pushing for evil things. They're spreading lies. They're spreading misinformation. They're spreading bad ideas. They're actually trying to put bad policies on the country that hurt people. These are evil things, and people should work to try to stop them. And yet, even though they're literally hurting people, imprisoning people, making the economy worse, that's all sorts of effects, we can't use violence. And that can sound like I'm full of shit when I say that. Do I believe it's evil or not? If I really believe it's evil, why am I not for violence? It's because, well, this is all top of head here, even though I have thought about this before, but I can't remember my own thoughts. You got to look at the bigger picture. The bigger picture. In a society where we use violence to solve our political disagreements or our disagreements of speech and to end people's speech, violence will beget violence. And at that point, it's going to result in two different things. Chaos, which means more violence, a worse economy, less jobs, less profit, less, freedom and wealth, and frankly, being able to live. Or it's going to result in tyranny that clamps it all down. And when you look at the bigger picture, I'm sure John Stuart Mill or something explained this better than me. But you got to look at the bigger picture. And so, but it's tough because people say, oh, that's bad rhetoric. You're saying he's evil. He's doing evil things. No, he is doing evil things. That Chinese propagandists were spreading bullshit lies. Most of the people on Twitter who say anything about politics, left or right, are spreading nonsense, misinformation, and just making bad arguments, spreading bad ideas. And to the extent that helps put these ideas into practice, that's incredibly evil. That's incredibly evil. Whether that from raising the minimum wage too high, where you actually just make things worse, or from, not giving people due process before you kick them out of the country. These are evil because of their effects, and yet we shouldn't stop it with violence. We shouldn't kill people. How does violence equal bad economy? I'll get to that in a second. Yeah, this isn't the clearest thing. This is something we're bringing up again. Obviously, it's a deeper thing that I don't know how to explain. But I think I'm trying to say you got to look at the bigger picture. Because a world where you kill people for violence, where you dissolve your political disagreements over violence, is a greater evil. And to prevent the greater evil, we say, nope, we're going to let people say what they want. We're going to have these rules where we elect people, and, if that means something evil is going to happen because you lost the election, then we let evil happen. Because to use force to break the democracy, well, that's going to create a bigger evil. And so you got to do it at the net cost benefit analysis. Violence, why does violence equal bad economy? So, if I go outside and punch one guy, that does make the economy worse. Even I was going to say, well, this doesn't. No, actually it does. If I go punch one guy, let's say I punch him significantly and hurt him, now healthcare resources have to be used to heal him. That could have been used otherwise. That hurts the economy. Let's say he has to skip a day from work. That hurts economy. Could be used otherwise. Let's say I go to jail. Well, those are resources that could have been used otherwise. And let's pretend I'm doing something productive. Let's pretend that I'm no longer doing that because I'm in jail. Do that as a society-wide level. More violence. More people doing productive stuff. More resources to use to camp the violence. And that's just one mechanism. That's not even what I was thinking. But that's a serious mechanism. Because, yes, one person doesn't matter. But we live in a society of millions of people. It adds up. But also, let's say we are a more violent society because we're a society where I lose the election. I don't give a shit. I kill that guy because what he's doing is a greater evil. So I got to kill him. And that, if it's not a one-off, if that's happening all the time, essentially it means we have to have a little civil war in order to decide who rules the world, to rule the country. Well, if I want to start a small business is a lot harder if I can't be confident that my customers will be alive, that I will be alive, that I can keep my profits. I mean, ultimately, if violence starts to rule the day, well, why would I invest gaining my skills and into my business if it could be destroyed at any time? Because frankly, we don't live in a secure society. And ultimately, if you look at the cases where you had a political order that wasn't ruled by violence, then this isn't necessarily about democracy in any system, and then all of a sudden it is ruled by violence, well, look at the economy. It goes down. And because essentially talking about war at that point, but war is not good for the economy. It kills a lot of people. It destroys a lot of things. Those farms are now burned. That's food, instead of helping people write things or think of things and become more productive, are going just to destroy stuff. Yeah. But the nurses have to work with fixing the guy up. That's sort of I think the name is, there's like a broken windows fallacy. It might be what it's called. It's something economists talk about. And so that's based on that argument. Let's say there's a window out there. We should just break windows because, well, the glass makers get work. The guy who fixes the windows should make work. But the thing is those resources used to do that could be spent on something else. Rather than fixing a window, we could use those resources making something new. And so rather than needing more nurses, because remember, it's not really just me, we could have less nurses and invest that in something more productive. Because the economy isn't just, there's not infinite things we can invest in and purchase and do things with. We have limited ability. And well, is it better to fix something that broke? Well, if it's not broke, is it better to break something and fix it? Or not break that thing and spend those resources doing something else? It's better to spend those resources doing something else. And again, for any one window, it doesn't matter. But big picture, that's how we grow. It's by investing things in the most efficient things possible. And then sometimes we maybe do it in inefficient on purpose so that if the most efficient way possible means the bottom are essentially slaves, well, that's pretty unjust. But outside of a situation like that, you generally don't want to destroy things in order to create a job. Yeah. But that's a common thing, because it's also why you got to be careful with Keynesianism, because you need it, because some people are like, well, yeah, it's stimulus. We need stimulus at all times because it's good for the economy. Well, yeah, if money is no object, if there's no such thing as debt, the debt doesn't matter. There's no such thing as inflation. Inflation never happens. It doesn't exist. Then we should stimulate it all the time. But if the budget, the debt, inflation, debt, I already said that one. If that stuff matters, well, then we need a special reason to stimulate. And, there's a theory about, the reason we're in a recession. Part of the reason is because mentally, we all think the economy's bad. We all think everything sucks. So maybe if the government comes in, we'll start spinning it the other way and investing again. That doesn't always work, but that's one theory. The other thing for stimulus is a misnomer, and really it's just, well, this recession is going to suck, but let's just help these people out, theory. In which case it's more recession welfare, which we also call stimulus. And like another example it is another mechanism, I think, is do we really want to let the states have to let go firemen and police because we're in a recession? Probably not. So in that case, maybe we should have a stimulus. Unless our police force is bloated, then it's a good time to cut and can blame it on the recession. Anyways, I think it's really funny that I'm trying to do this, because I'm not a precise thinker at all, but I'm just ramble and can't even get out my thoughts. But I'm doing it anyways because, well, that's what I feel like doing. So, yeah. Well, but those are good questions. Let's see. Those are good questions, though. And I don't know if you're serious about the Luigi thing, but I also consider that straight up assassin and murder and bad. I don't think it's good to kill CEOs, but I think that's just as bad as killing Charlie Kirk. I guess it's not it's in a way it's also political violence. He's not a political figure, but the motivation appeared to be political to some extent. And I think both of these are also a guy kind of went crazy, to some extent. It's more than that, but neither Luigi nor the guy who killed Kirk tend to seem to be deep ideological thinkers who've really thought everything through and really had this deep understanding. They seem like guys who kind of snapped and did something stupid. And hey, Luigi had back problems for a really long time, apparently really painful, and the insurance company wouldn't get him the care that he thought he needed. And I'm not sympathetic towards that. Well, I'm sympathetic towards that, but not saying that he should have killed someone. But I'm definitely sympathetic towards that, because insurance companies have fucked me so many times. But I would never kill anyone because of that. I would just have a level of understanding with Luigi while still condemning in clear terms what he did. And people should not cheer that. It's ridiculous. But, yeah, no. I assumed you're just memeing, but you never know. We don't talk that much, but a lot of people are you never know. Because the thing is I used to be an excellent troll, but I'm really easily trolled, which is a little ironic. It's because I really can't tell if people are trolling or not, because the troll and the actual belief are indistinguishable, because people really are that dumb. When I say dumb, sometimes it's dumb, but sometimes it's just misguided or biased, not necessarily low IQ. Always got to clarify that. I'm not really calling everyone dumb. But, and someone being smarter doesn't help. It actually sometimes makes it worse, because they just make better arguments. But not good, or not more valid arguments, just better arguments, which take a lot longer if you're going to deal with them more seriously. Gives me more things to look up, which sometimes is helpful. Oh yeah, murder is bad. But also, I don't think it was justified at all, as in it is murder. Yeah. In one term of way of using murder, if you're calling it murder, by definition it's wrong, because that's what murder means. But yeah, obviously, yeah, that was murder. It wasn't cool. He should have advocated in other ways. And at some point, I don't think he sat in his room, thought out this ideology, and then concluded, I have to murder the CEO. And I don't think the guy killed Kirk did that either. There isn't indication either of them did that. I think both of them had little pieces of ideology, and they went crazy. We got to include the psychological element here, because there's a giant psychological element. And then, rhetoric helps that. And again, I think it's difficult with rhetoric because I want to be able to honestly say these actions are evil, and then also say, yeah, but you shouldn't kill them, even though they're doing evil. And if there's not, I don't think there's a quick way to explain. Someone needs to come up. There's probably someone to come up with little clever things, and I need to have that quote ready to copy and paste. If you didn't understand that 10-minute ramble that made no sense, here's a quote from someone we all trust who said it succinctly. I need those, and I just need them in a document. And so it's like, well, if you listen to that 20-minute ramble, I'm going to copy and paste this, and so maybe you'll understand. And if not, whatever. I'm not an activist here. I don't really care. Just want to talk about stuff and try to understand the world better before I die. Because that for some reason gives me positive things in my brain. I don't know how this is making me understand the world better. In theory, I develop a community of lone candle acolytes, and I don't make them smarter. They make me smarter. Really, I just waste my time and do stuff, but that's what I was doing anyways. So it doesn't matter. All right. Man, I don't know if we have time for Heroes 3 today, but that's okay. Let's see. Well, I guess I could still do Neff. This guy blocked me. Not cool. Not a big deal, but not cool, Neff. So yes, we actually know a lot about his views based on his behavior. And, all right. What's that? Okay, that's community guidelines. All right. Based on his behavior. And, again, I think we know enough to know he's left, but do we know whatever exactly this is? I was like, well, no, we don't. Again, just a question of fact. I could be wrong. Maybe we know him a lot more than I realize. I haven't followed this in a while, so maybe Neff would enlighten me here. Maybe he will enlighten me. Obviously, I felt confident enough that was wrong that I said, LOL, no, we don't. And I said, I'd be happy to read an article explaining the details of these views and the evidence behind them. We know enough to know that he had become more left, but we really don't know what his variety of views are and how radical or extreme he was in general. And then I'm waiting for him to give me some evidence here. He gives me a little bit later, but evidence that adds up to being left. Not this. It's almost like he doesn't know what we're talking about. You're begging for specific effing policy positions when that literally means nothing. When we're talking about someone's views, political views, that is their policy positions. I mean, at least to an extent, it ultimately arrives to policy vision. So it does, unless we're not talking about your political stats, your political ideology, well, then that does result in views. But okay, you're begging for specific policy positions when that literally means nothing. Radical leftist covers what we need. You've admitted we are right already. Well done. So I don't know what he meant by admitted we're right already. Maybe because he saw me say, we know enough that I became more left, and he saw this and said, hey, you admitted it. But he's responding to something where literally, the first thing I said was, we know he was left. I start this whole thing, which, by the way, that's what he's responding to, which you'd think he would have read it. I literally started was, we know he was left. And so then when I say he's left again, he says he admitted it. So it's like, oh, does he think I'm trying to say he's conservative or something? It's like he doesn't even understand my position, which again, you don't have an excuse for that when you're responding to me, and the first thing I said was, we know he's left, but we don't know the range. Anyways. Oh, man. The claim was that he was a radical left-wing extremist. That is either a meaningless rhetorical statement or is a claim about a person's political worldview. It could also be his action. If, maybe that's what Metatron. Metatron could be a whole bunch of things, but I'm not talking to Metatron here. We need more specifics to make that claim about someone's worldview. I said he was left my very first comment. I put it out, and he goes, no, we don't. Saying no, you don't to me saying, I guess we need more specifics. It is a direct claim about his political view, and we have plenty to be confident that, no, we don't. We know he's left. We don't know whether he's really extreme or radical. But I agree you need to be left. But again, this is the thing we're disagreeing about. But cool story, bro. I didn't understand what that was referring to. He gave me a thumbs up. Was the story me explaining that I already said that? You know, in which case, Neff, we already did that. The story is me explaining that you didn't understand the thing you were responding to. All right, and I said, you were just making claims with little to no evidence. You were just telling stories. Then ironically say, cool story, bro. You can keep repeating no evidence, but that won't change his family's words, his friends, his own words, and his actions. It's fine that you don't have any discernment. Oh, this guy uses the word discernment over and over again. And now I use the word discernment now that it got in my head. Thanks, Neff. It's a good word, I guess, even though you use it dumbly. I mean, we'll get into that. This is a long conversation with Neff, so he might be a troll, but he had some dedication for his troll. I don't even think he's really a troll. I think he's actually just a biased fool. Also, because if you're a troll, you don't block people, you know? Unless that's part of the troll, in which case he got me. He got me. You got me. You got me. You got me, Neff. You got me good. Right in the butt. Okay, what was I doing? You can keep... Okay, so this is the first time he brings evidence. His family's words. So, remember, his family is conservative. And I think if you look at how people view other people's ideologies, it's usually not very accurate. If you're conservative, especially if most of your friends are conservative, and there's a left guy, the assumption is he's far left. Even if he might be quite moderate. He might not even be left. But moderate looks left from your perspective. And so you can't, the family's views are just not a lockdown, view. It's not it's not lockdown evidence. And my understanding of the family's words was, oh yeah, he became left. Not, oh, we have all these different policy positions, which again, I don't think we need to know every policy the guys believe, but we just need a handful to be like, oh yeah, these add up to really extreme and really radical. These are far left. But we don't have those, and it's not like the family detailed us of those. So again, the family doesn't tell us anything that I'm saying we need, or that would be helpful. They just say, yeah, he's left. And they don't really know how far left he is, because how would they know? And they had some conversations. People generally aren't good at that. That's not very strong. And again, that's why I'm saying he's left. I think he's left, because the families tend to say that, and I'm kind of saying, well, the family probably knows. And combined with that, he hates Charlie Kirk and shot him, which is obviously makes him more likely to be left. His friends, I think we had some of his friends. His own words, again, he didn't have a lot of words. He didn't tell us a lot about his ideology. So again, it's like, yes, we have these things, that's why I think he's left, but if you actually look at all of these things, it tells us there's little content there of what he believed. And if we have little content for what he believed, then we can't really talk about where he is on the left spectrum. Other than that, yeah, he's left, but we don't know where. But we can't really explain how left-wing or radical or extreme his views are. Again, his actions were extreme, but he's not talking about just actions, or he's talking about actions as evidence of his views. But again, your views don't have to be that extreme to take action. I mean, you got to be that's more about being a little crazy than about actual views. Depending. There's kind of two different type of political radicals who do violence. Some are like, they're actually steeped in the ideology, and it's like, really, there's a good argument that the ideology made them violent. Was like, it was the cause, the prime cause. It's always a psychological thing, the prime cause. But then you have ones where, well, this guy doesn't really understand that ideology well at all. No, this guy is something else wrong happening, and the ideology was a facilitator. Which, in this case, it seems to be a facilitator, because obviously the guy's not... If it was the ideology, then you'd likely see that. And maybe it was a facilitator, but we don't have evidence of that. Remember, my claim here is just we don't know. We know he's left, we don't know anything else. But this guy thinks because these list of things, none of these are the guy explaining his ideology in any much detail, or even something that I'll just pinpoint. So this doesn't add up to much, and Neff doesn't seem to get that. It's fine that you don't have any discernment. Yeah, okay. And I don't know why I said it. And this goes both ways. Right-wing violence says, I almost feel like I'm commenting this in an extension. I don't know what I'm doing here. And this goes both ways. Right-wing violence has long been a large amount of left-wing, and ideas of rhetoric of the right contributes to that. I don't know why I felt like that was needed at the time. Whatever. And you lose conversations here. Twitter is not good for me doing what I'm trying to do here because look, there's multiple things here. Oh yeah, I already acknowledged that. I already acknowledged that he's left. That I'm acknowledging all this, and it doesn't add up to much. Getting ahead of the evidence isn't discernment, it's speculation, it's not helpful or necessary. Yes, it does add up. See, we're not actually talking about the things, but the thing is he's claiming that we can tell where on the left spectrum it is. And so it's up, if he believes that, he should bring up the evidence. And he did bring up a list of some evidence, but I'm aware of that evidence, and I'm aware that its content is almost empty. None of it really explains that. And I'm just saying, therefore we can't really know how far left he is. And he doesn't seem to, it's not like he brings up a quote that then like, oh, well, this one shows. He tries to, but the ones he does bring up don't do that. It's like, it's weird, if he takes the time to bring up a quote and it doesn't at all provide very good evidence, then it's like, well, why wouldn't, bring up the good quote? Oh wait, or is it because this is the best quote you had? In which case, if you're only going to bring one quote, my guess is you don't have much better. I mean, I can't know, but I can only guess. Anyways, I don't know where I'm going with this, especially because I don't, this isn't necessarily in order, because like we comment on multiple things at once, and so it just gets confusing. This goes both ways. Right-wing violence has been a larger, okay, I don't know why I saw I need to say that. Yes, okay. Okay, then we briefly talk about whether that's true or not. No, it hasn't, and now you're proving that you not only have lack of discernment, but you don't check the data you choose to trust. The ADL-Qaeda, much studies on this have been universally shredded. Right-wing violence has not been a larger problem than left-wing. Shredded. They have not been universally shredded. Right-wing violence has been a bigger problem. I'd say you lack discernment and believe bad critique. This is one of those things where, yeah, I'm not an expert at these. I would have to do a big, deep dive. But, really credited places have done this, and the people critiquing them don't appear to be. I've briefly looked into it, and it doesn't look like there's a good argument to discredit. It seems pretty clear. You get more right violence than left violence, and that's been true for a long time. And, of course, it's always a little awkward, because a lot of people on the violence on the right who would be accurately categorized as right violence might have little to do with most conservatives. And so, but if you're going to take the time to put it on a spectrum, they are correctly labeled right, even though they have little to do with both. It's kind of like Antifa. I guess Antifa is correctly labeled left, but most people call themselves liberal, moderate, far left, even socialist, have really nothing to do with Antifa or even agree with them on stuff. But anyways, all right. Is because people have gone through the data. Oh, they have. And this is okay. So obviously, I have just, at one point we're both just who are we trusting? Are we trusting the big organization that did it, or the critiquers? And obviously, we're not going into details. That would be a lot of time. And this is where I'm like, well, I don't trust your discernment ability that you claim to have. So you're just telling me that you've done it right. It doesn't really work. I just mean it's been happening for I don't think I saw this. I'm just saying it's been like that for decades. It's a common thing that in the U.S., you get more right political violence than left, and it's been true for a long time. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I've missed a lot of things here. This really isn't the best conversation to do this on. Partly because I'm losing the plot. Partly, especially because once the conversation gets long, people tend to, especially other people, but even me, you start to respond more quickly, and it's just like, and then you bring up a side thing, which, well, I'm not digging into that. Pretty sure you're wrong about that. But if I was honestly going to do a deep look, that's not a quick look. So let's see. Is there anything else I want to talk about on this? I didn't see that. Let's see. Let's get back to the top. Because I think we're missing parts of the conversation. Because I feel like we talked about more things in this. But maybe I'm just thinking because I was talking to that other guy at the same time. But anyways, essentially, this guy's claiming we know he's a radical left-wing extremist. He seems to be defending that as an ideology. Not Meta. I don't know what Meta meant. But Neff. And he really doesn't have any evidence to support it. He took the time to respond a lot and brought up some examples, but I'm aware of all those examples, and they don't even come close to adding up to being anything precise. So he's basically just insisting so it's not true. And then he did the same thing the other guy did, which I just want to call out. It's not a big deal. All right, none of it's that big of a deal. Big blog is not a big deal. But I think even things are not a big deal, you can still call them out. Which, again, there's a couple things here. One, he comes in here saying, I'm done with your prattle, essentially saying I'm an idiot. Oh, he even called me a piece of shit. Okay. Now, if you don't want to talk to me, you can walk away. You could walk away. You don't have to block. You don't have to block. You could walk away. So it doesn't really add up. Like if I'm messaging him all the time or commenting on everything he says, trolling him, well, of course, that's a legit block. But here, you could just walk away. And so the block was unnecessary. And so then it's like, oh, that was kind of dickish and frankly childish. But it gets a lot worse than that. Because another thing you could do, be like, nah, I don't want to ever hear this guy again. I want to make sure I don't. I'm going to block him. Okay. But again, you could just have the conversation kind of end and then you block him. Well, that's not what he did. That's what he did. He did a series of messages and then blocked so I can't even respond. That is just extremely childish and dickish. Is it the big deal? No. But I think we should point these things out because I think people don't realize how actually dickish that is. Like literally, that is saying, no, you're a piece of shit and you don't know anything. I'm not listening anymore and I'm making it so you can never talk to me again with the magical ability and then teleporting away. If it was magic instead of a computer block. It's like, what? What are you doing? What are you doing? You want people to take you seriously? People will because people are fools. But it's just a dickish, childish thing to do. And I think we should call it out. Let's see. The reason they've been people gone through the data, yeah, I don't give a shit, but I don't think I saw this. Oh, because he did multiple at once, and it was hard to read them all. I don't think my words are meaningless. Yeah, no, we are missing a lot. I feel like we had he used the word discernment like 5 more times, but I don't know how to find the whole conversation. No, they aren't, you fucking liars. Laughing face. The eyewitnesses have only spoken about what he said and done. They have made very few conclusions except one, that he is headed more left. You sound insane, uninformed. I'm about to block you for being an idiot. Wait, hold on. I'm holding the position that he's left. He's holding the position that we know enough to say his beliefs were, because remember, I was talking about beliefs and he was clearly talking about beliefs. So even if Meta meant something else, that's irrelevant. His beliefs were radical, extreme, left wing. He's saying we know enough to pinpoint that. I'm just saying, yeah, we know he went left. He may have been really conservative still on some issues. He may have been all left wing. That's also possible. But now he's saying the eyewitnesses, or I assume he means people who have spoken to him, because eyewitnesses didn't know his ideology. They just may have saw, someone murdered, unfortunately. They made very few conclusions, except one, that we was headed more left. Well, we both agree that. So that doesn't support your position. Headed more left does not support the position of extreme radical left wing. So now does he know what our disagreement is? Thing is, I think he's legitimately getting mad. See, I don't think he's just a troll. He seems to actually be getting mad, not trolling. And he thinks he's having a serious argument, yet even in one of his final things that are mostly on topic, because this is mostly just insulting me, and this is our little side conversation, didn't really go anywhere. This is the last thing he said on... Oh, that was still the side. I think this is the last thing he said on topic. I've just lost the thing. It's one of the last things. Well, we were running in circles, but I would blame that on him, because he keeps saying... This is your claim about us not having enough knowledge to say he was radical extreme left wing is wrong. And then his evidence is basically non-existent. It's enough to say he was left, and he doesn't bring in any evidence that says otherwise. And then even while he's discussing it, he says they have made very few conclusions except one, that he was headed more left. Well, we agree with that. And that what the question is, how do we know he's left wing, extreme, and radical? How do we know that rather than just somewhere on the left? We just don't know his ideology. We don't know where he's positioned, where you would position him if you kind of knew his positions. Yes, it does add to love. It does not have much for you, because you have no discernment. You can't parse implication, context. You have no logic and must be told what to think about things. I don't know how he include that. He doesn't know enough about that to say that. And I feel like I wasn't told to critique Meta, and I like Meta overall. I think he's a little toxic, and I think his anti-wokeness goes too far. But This is, you just saw me thinking for myself. Oh, this is me thinking for myself. I mean, this is just silly. The thing is, you may think this is like me complaining about one conversation, but 90% of the conversations are like this. So you can just apply this over and over again, as this is a lesson for, I don't know, this really isn't a lesson at all. At some point, I just don't know how to stop. And I'm like, well, I'm not stopping until Kara gets home. Or my throat's getting pretty sore. I just see when she gets home. Might still have time to do heroes. Okay, yeah, so he's saying discernment, and I'm saying, no, you're actually showing bad discernment. Jumping to conclusions, thinking you are going logic, meaning 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, 8 times 3 is 24, logic, it adds up. He thinks he's doing that, when really he's seeing 0.1, 0.3, 0.5, and getting 100. That's not discernment, it's wild speculation, and then that you don't realize you're doing that, well, that's even less discernment. It's not enough self-reflective discernment about what's happening there. See, he likes to talk about discernment. What the political leanings are of the eyewitnesses. Oh, that's because I pointed out that, it wasn't all I said, but one thing is just, his family's conservative. You got to remember, they're going to have trouble knowing exactly where he is, because generally, if you're conservative, and it goes both ways, this isn't a particular conservatives, left people tend to see someone a little more conservative than them and tend to assume they're further to the right to that, especially if most of their friends are similar, which it sounds like that's what his family likely is. And so, no, his family probably doesn't have good discernment on that themselves, and therefore, I use discern now. Thanks, Neff. Discern, I don't know if it's temporary or not, but he may put discern and discernment in my, I should probably look up what it means. But his family probably doesn't have good discernment. And again, if someone provides me a link of them explaining in detail, recounting word for word, memories can be wrong. But if we, put some weight on that, maybe they explain in detail their son's and family member's position, the guy who became a murderer. But my understanding, they just said he moved more left, basically. And so that doesn't really help. That doesn't add up much if you're trying to place him precisely, which Neff seems to think you can, but he doesn't really have an argument for that. And but even stating that he's left is tough, because people aren't good at judging other people's ideology. They tend to exaggerate it. But again, I'm actually taking that as evidence that he's left. Combined with that, he obviously, it tends to be left people who would say Charlie Kirk spreads hate. And I don't know Charlie Kirk enough to say whether he spreads hate or not. The little I saw of him looked like he was spreading a lot of bad ideas, but I haven't seen a lot of them. So he may have been doing more good than I realized, Mr. Kirk. Either way, should have been killed. Let me reiterate, that was wrong. Okay. Okay. I think we're done here. Anywho, I probably will do this again. I'm going to try to do it shorter. Ideally things where, we're talking about something real. This was maybe not even a necessary comment for me. The genocide thing is good because, I've had that argument over and over again. And, I'm open to the argument about, well, maybe it's legally a genocide, because that's different than just a clear definition. But you do get this over and over again with Simon here, who they'll talk about all the people dead. They'll talk about all the destruction. But then again, we've got, okay, what does genocide mean again? Well, it's an attempt to kill an entire race, or at least destroy an entire people in a region. And if you actually look at Israel doing it, it doesn't look like they're trying to do that if you actually look at it. And they have the power. They have the power to do so much more. So it doesn't really add up. And so you either have to go, no, I'm going to talk about the legal genocide, which is a much lower bar, which case I can't really talk about that. And I haven't done the homework on that. Or you really have to start explaining to me, if you want to convince me it's a genocide, not necessarily legally, but just what the word freaking means, you've got to show me intent. And nope, there's a much more straightforward explanation for all the destruction, and it's that you're fighting a war against terrorists who might among the populace, and that, Israel's committing war crimes and has a low bar for killing civilians, but they don't appear to be trying to wipe all of them out. And so you'd have to show me that my understanding of that war was wrong. No, actually, they were trying to wipe them out in some way that made it look like they were just doing how I've described it. But oh no, there's something I don't understand about how Israel was perpetrating the war. And I think on almost all the killings were, bombs and bullets, and none of that looks like a genocide. Because they would be killing a lot more people if they're trying to kill them all. So you have to, well, no, they're trying to do it slowly so that the world doesn't react. They're cooking a slow frog, which doesn't appear to be the case, but at least at that point you're getting plausible. Or you could point to the starvation. But again, they've kept enough food where you didn't have a lot of starvation deaths. And again, a few starvation deaths is horrible. But it's not genocide. Genocide is a few starvation deaths. Genocide is you literally don't let enough food in so that everyone starts to die. Everyone dies. And that's just not what Israel did. Maybe they want to do that. Maybe they wish they could. But as long as they weren't doing that, then it's not genocide. But, yeah. And then sorry, YouTube. OBS disconnected. And for whatever reason, it stopped the YouTube stream, but not the other ones. All right. At this point, I'm just rambling. Because at this point, this part of my day is the wait for Kara to get home part of my day. And that part of my day, I'm just trying not to eat too much. That's what it is. I haven't had a fruit yet, so maybe I'll have an apple today. I got an apple back there. Yeah, I should probably have an apple. Yeah, I got some red ones. I got a Golden Delicious. But the Golden Delicious are the newest, so I gotta get down those red ones. I better stop this stream. End stream.